Hello and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I am Michael Gracia and I have a wonderful show tonight. I got two guests that I'm really excited to talk about. The first one is Buddy Scalera, who's been on the show before, and the other guest is Rob Andersin. Let me tell you how tonight started, just by the way. I know I usually go Wednesday nights, but tomorrow night's my 14-year wedding anniversary, so I'm not going to do a show that night. So I'll be, hanging out with my wife. And but the other day on Facebook, Rob made a post about comic book conventions, and I'll let him talk about it. I'm not going to go into the detail about it right now, but I made a comment, and I found it very interesting, and I watched the TikTok video that he shared with me. And I'm like, we got to talk about this on the show. So I invited him to come on the show, and, Buddy and him are good, and we're like, let's get them on together. I was told that they're great guests together. So let's bring on Rob and Buddy. So Rob and Buddy, hello.
What's going on this evening?
Not much. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. I just happened to be walking by and
well, thank you.
And I saw you guys.
Thank you both.
Michael, why were you stumbling? Like Rob and Buddy are good.
I lost my train of thought.
We're good friends. What's it?
Yeah, no.
Can I say they're friends?
No,
yeah,
I didn't.
Man.
It's not that I didn't mean to.
We have each other's personal cell phone numbers.
Are we fighting, Buddy?
I'm sorry.
I'm aware of, but tonight only we will bring it on. Yeah, no, I think it's. Michael seemed uncertain.
No, it wasn't that. I lost my train of thought.
It was like
a two falls match or a 3-count match, like in this cage match tonight.
All right.
So, Michael, this is how this is gonna go. Rob, right. Rob's gonna give you. He's like our wrestling coach. He comes in. He's like, you are going to work hard, and then he rips a phone book in half, and then he punches a planet. And then we're all motivated. So that's how we do it at comic book school. So I hope you don't mind that we bring that to Get in Tune.
Bring all that energy in. I'm really good with that.
Punch a planet.
A small planet, not a big one.
He did punch Pluto once. Knocked it. It's no longer considered a planet. So
I won't punch a planet with more than 1 million people on it. I won't do it.
Oh boy.
So tonight, like I said, Rob made a post, and I really just wanted to talk about the industry. And you guys both are very knowledgeable about the industry. You both have experience doing conventions. Comics have been a big part of my life, my entire life. I've been in the small press independent world since 1997. I will say that I am taking a step back, because I don't think you guys have heard this announcement. I am taking a step back in comics to focus on animation, which really is my true passion. But I will still be reading comics. I will still be involved in comics. I will still be creating them. They're just not going to be my main focus right now. But
wait. So what animation will you be? Are you announcing it, Michael? Is this?
No. I've announced that I'm focusing on animation. Basically, what I've been wanting to do for a very long time is to animate my own shorts. Is to do short, humorous stories. I don't want to say in the vein of like Looney Tunes, but like humorous things like that. Whether they're 30 seconds or 3 minutes or 11 minutes, I don't know yet. But a lot of the stuff I write when I write my comics seem to be better for animation. And I've always thought as an animator, I'm trained as an animator. I worked as my first job, I worked as a character designer and then moved up into animation.
Wow.
I was for a video game company that was making educational software back in the 90s. And since then I have done animation. I've taught it for years. And I love it. It is my number one passion, but comics are my number two. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So will you keep doing this show?
Yes, I will continuously do the show. I will always be promoting comics. I'll be promoting animators, whatever I could bring on within the cartoon world, whether they're writers, artists, producers, I don't care. Could be editors. I don't care. As long as they are on the show and they are doing something cartoony, I will want to promote them. I have the majority of my friends spending so much time in comics are comic artists, and I will do whatever I can to help my friends, promote their work, whether, it's something small. Like we just had, if you guys heard, last Saturday at Poe Park in the Bronx, was the opening reception for Batman Bill Finger and Beyond art show. I have a piece in there, and
Wow.
there were some panels. Athena Finger came up, and it was a nice time.
Michael, your comments are on fire, man. People
Yes, I was just going to get to
burning
the
it up.
comments. So, hello to Dylan. Let's see, what do we got here? Hello, I'm a comic book artist myself, and I love your books, Buddy Scalera, and they've helped me in my career so much. I want to say thank you. I wish I knew who that Facebook user was. For some reason, it doesn't show my Facebook people anymore. It just says Facebook user.
Well, thank you, Facebook user.
As a heads up for that person doing it, that's actually on your end, on your Facebook account. Look up StreamYard permission for Facebook, and you can actually fix it so everyone in the room will know who you are. It's actually a setting from the user itself.
It says Joe Ryan.
Oh, Joe Ryan, yes. I know Joe. Joe's a regular viewer. He says, I'm actually starting to animate too. Awesome. He's a graduate of the Cuba School. Dylan asks what the comic book called. My first comic book was called Plunger Pup. It was about a dog who fought crime with a magic plunger. Let's see. We have got Redheaded Ed. I missed comic book school, so I jumped on here. Hey, guys, I miss you. All right.
Redheaded Ed is part of comic book school. In fact, one of the anchor members, right, Rob?
Absolutely.
We were lucky to have her, and some of you will meet her at New York Comic Con. Speaking of Comic Cons, in October. Michael, will you be there?
I don't know. I didn't sign up for it this year, but a friend of mine put in for a panel, and if he gets the panel and it's on a day I can attend, I will be a panelist on it.
Panels have been decided already.
From what I understand, he's still waiting to hear
there's
back.
a wait list. Yeah, there's wait list panels. Yeah.
So he's on a wait list, and I can only do weekend days now because of my new job I mentioned to you off air. I can't take off Thursdays or Fridays anymore, or at least right now. It's a busy time for the job. So I will only go Saturday or Sunday if I have the ability.
Well,
to be on
Facebook
the
user will be there, and Redheaded Ed will be there.
And I will say, though, I do miss the show. I did enjoy going to it. I have sat on your panels quite a bit. When I was part of Pronto and I was the art director for Pronto, I was up actually at the table looking at portfolio reviews during.
We always loved when Pronto came. They brought it. Right?
Yeah.
So is Pronto going to be representing there?
You know what? I have not been part of Pronto for a few years, but I'm still in contact with all the people, and from what I've heard, people will be there, but I don't know if Pronto has a booth this year. I haven't heard that yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, but Pronto people will be at the show walking and stuff. So,
Fabu.
Yeah, it's
Redheaded Ed moved to GA.
Nice.
She made her move. She's now rocking the Atlanta animation scene.
So, if it's who I think it is, she's been on my show before, correct?
D-Alley. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Just want to make sure. Just want to make sure.
Yep, she's an animator as well.
So let's talk about a couple of things. Now, first off, I wanna go to Rob. We'll talk about. I'll ask him how he wants to start, because this started because of a Facebook post he made. And would you like to hold off and talk about cons later, Rob, or would you like to start about the industry first and then lead into?
Dealer's choice.
I'm dying to hear what you posted, Rob. I didn't even see it. You know how often I go on Facebook.
Yeah, Buddy doesn't want to connect with billions of people.
I don't, and I don't want to go on TikTok because I don't want to be successful.
He wants to use the old bulletin boards from like 1990s. He's very happy. He's on MySpace. He's the one person keeping MySpace alive right now.
I'm chatting on AOL AIM right now. This is what I'm doing with my CompuServe address. No, but I don't really go on Facebook. But Rob says I should be on the Facebook and the TikTok. So what is this mysterious post that you made, Rob?
Okay.
Oh, it's not mysterious. We got together and we came up with basically our version of like a standard for Comic Cons from now on. Simple standards that, because the local smaller shows are taking money away from creators and they're not backing up what they're supposed to be doing. They've given up even trying because they can make all their money on tables and not care what happens when the attendance shows up because they're not risking it anymore. You have small shows. There's one coming up in my local area. The guy, first show he threw, literally made it look like the creators and the vendors were hostages. They had such horrible looks on their face. And that was because about 35 people showed up. Now he's
35 paying guests?
Yeah. Yep, 35. 35 in the day I was there. I counted. I literally counted.
But worldwide. Thank you. That's my boyish young good looks.
And then now he's doing a 3-day show in the worst time of the year, the week before Black Friday, which we all know that is one of the worst times of the year to do a Comic-Con because everyone's saving their money for Black Friday deals. No one's going to be flying because if they're flying for the Thanksgiving holiday. But this guy doesn't want to listen to anyone who's doing this in our local area. The problem is when someone does a bad show in a local area, the other shows get affected. And it becomes a tumbling effect. And in Florida, because I do something called the Comics Forecast, I can tell you, even if I didn't promote the show on my actual program, Florida is now, I think, in the 28th straight week of having a Comic-Con on the weekend.
Wow.
You can't afford an environment where you're doing it so often that it is no longer meaningful. And you have promoters not putting on panels. You have promoters not even getting comic book guests at a Comic-Con now. They call it a Comic-Con, and it's Funko Pops, and it's all the unlicensed merchandise your heart could desire that would make the mouse himself cry if he saw how much people were charging for his IP stuff that he could never get away with charging that much in Walmart. And look, anyone can run the shows the way they want to, but as Michael knows, we were going back and forth just talking, what should the standard be? And what really shocked me is you had all these creators being like, you can't say anything, they're going to ban you. I'm like, ban me from every bad show. Please do me the favor and ban me for not going to a bad show. Save me the time and the money. Let your show be the show that I can point to and go, I can't go there because I told them I expected very basic stuff. Like if I sent this to New York Comic Con, they would just be like, and we do every single thing you've listed. We're talking about basics of a website, basics of having a hashtag on your main page, literally telling the address of your show on your front page. Like basic things that I should not have to tell someone who is charging money for entrance. Basic. And then we talk about some of the harder things, like creators are a little nervous when you're promoting cosplayers. When you're promoting just cosplayers as guests, that makes a lot of comic book creators like, well, why are you calling yourself a Comic-Con if your main guest is someone on Instagram who's never going to have their fans show up at your event?
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Recently, there was a convention near me, and I didn't attend it. I couldn't attend it that weekend, but I went on and I checked out what the panels were. Outside of one panel, every panel related to cosplay. It was how to make a wig, how how to design whatever. It was just everything was cosplay panels. It was called, and in the name it was Comic-Con. It had, I'm not going to name the Comic-Con right now, but it said that, and I'm like, and it had some really good creators there that I saw on the list, but a lot of the guests were dealers of toys and voice actors and cosplayers, and I'm like, and this is an issue I've complained about it on the show many times. I'm not anti-cosplayer in the sense where I actually used to build and perform puppets. I love the idea of sculpting something and making like a prop or whatever. And there are some great cosplayers who go out and do everything and build it themselves, and I totally respect that as an art form. But the cosplayers that bother me, there's two. There's the ones that build such elaborate costumes and block tables at shows and think they're the star of the show and walk around. And the others are the ones that get invited because they're good looking and they could just take a good photo in a costume. Those are the two types that bother me. When you look at someone, I don't know if you guys know who Father Evil is. But Father Evil is a cosplayer. He's a guy who started going to horror cons and he dressed as a priest, and then he eventually built it up, and now he has contacts and is one of the nicest dudes you'll ever talk to. But he developed a character. And he took the character from concept to a place where now he's getting invited and hosting horror shows at like horror cons and stuff. He built a brand. And like that's the type of cosplayer I would love to see. I don't need to see someone dressed up as Batman or another Supergirl or whatever. I want to see them build their own characters and develop their own IPs. That would be interesting to me in the world of cosplay, you know? So I'm sorry, Rob, you can continue.
No, that's a good point. And with the whole cosplayer thing, to be clear, the reason shows like cosplayers is that they do show up.
But they don't spend money.
But it doesn't matter to the promoter. And this is, again, the problem. The promoter no longer cares about the merchants who are showing up. And they're not putting on a show for anyone but teenagers to keep them at their shows. So all of them come hang out. And a lot of times cosplayers are rowdy. There was a cosplayer who got a signed signature and someone had left early at a show because they weren't doing well. And this kid decided to sit down behind the table and act like he was a creator. Unfortunately for him, I was the table next to that table. And I explained the world to him, and I explained how disrespectful he was. And if I ever saw him do that in any other show again, I'd make it my mission to have him escorted from the building. Because it's not a joke. We pay for those tables.
Yeah.
We are there for serious business, as you can see. Jack's behind me. How serious is that? We have all of these different things where we're really trying. We buy these banners. We do everything we can. And then you have these promoters who think it's a joke when we tell them honest, simple things. Like, I don't know, advertise your event outside. Tell people where the front door is. You know, why don't you advertise your event on anywhere else but Facebook, which if you're not paying, you're not getting seen.
Yeah. Did the promoter see the show? I'd rather see the post and respond.
I had a couple of promoters privately respond to me, but
did the promoter get the message? I mean,
the one that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I was very nice to this guy earlier in the year, even though I thought it was horrible. I told him what you should do, because this was Victor Dandridge, hardest working man in comics, said it's our responsibility to creators to try to help shows. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I've helped other shows, and they don't listen. But fine, Victor said it. I'll take it as a personal challenge. I'm going to try to help.
Who doesn't love Victor? I mean, right?
Exactly. So I took it upon me as a challenge to try to help this person that I personally dislike, because I know that he told me it was a great show, that he only made one or two mistakes, when all my friends in the other room were miserable. Okay. And some of them were wondering how they're going to afford to be able to go home, because sometimes people invest expecting the investment to be repaid at the show. And now it's a nervous thing. Well, wait, I just lost money and I did not expect it. So I reached out to him very nicely. I'm like, you should invite a local creator. That'll go a long way, and it might build you some support. He literally turned around and said to me, oh, you know, you don't understand what we're doing. We know what we're doing, and trust me, we have creators. And he went in this speech, and I said, yeah, what's the local creator you invited from Fort Myers? Because that's the area it's in. Crickets. He literally went to someone else I know and tried to get them to stop me. And all they did was call up laughing, going, oh, he really thinks I can control you. He thinks I can slow you down. Now, I just let it die because, again, if I talk, it's the golden rule. If you talk about it, you give them more press than they're getting right now.
Well, I'm looking him up right now. I'm curious now.
But it's not a good show. It's not somewhere that I suggest anyone going to, because he won't listen to anyone. But this is not an isolated story. Mike knows that all around, they're not listening to us as creators. Yeah. And you know that, buddy. Look at New York Comic Con. You used to have a block of educational panels.
Yeah.
You are now down to 3 hours, which is a criminal act, considering how many cosplay things I'll wind up seeing from New York Comic Con.
It's a criminal act. In the first, the first 2 years, Rob, they gave me Saturday and Sunday, and I filled both days. Then it went down to 1 day, and for a while, I was hovering around 9 hours. And then I got cut to 7 hours. and now I'm down to 3 hours of educational programming. And I think they have some really good people this year though at NYCC. Mike Negan is helping to do the planning. You know, Mike's a true Artist Alley guy, so I think Mike is bringing quite a bit of good educational planning back into. You do panels. I'm definitely going to panel. Good.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing is you have to have the right people, Rob, right? You have to have a good cross section of people who understand business, people who understand comics. Mike Negan is a perfect example. He's been working in comics for years. He's lived in Artist Alley. He knows all the creators, and I think he's selecting good panels. There's a place for cosplay, like you said, Michael. There's a place. No one's saying there's not. Some of them are true artists, and some of them are just people who are having fun. So there's a place. There's also a place for educational, and I think that we have to be clear as fans, Rob, like us, as pros, but also feedback to the cons. You know, when you go to a con and all you do are tweet images of cosplayers, well, that's what they think you're interested in.
Yeah.
So when my panels are around, I ask people, I say, look, we're not quite as photogenic, but I would appreciate it if you shared photos of your experience at comic book school panels, because that helps the con to know that people are there. And that's an important aspect of it. You have to vote with your social media. Tell people we are looking forward to comic book school panels. We're looking forward to other panels. That's how you tell them what you want. So for a long time, people have been sharing primarily cosplay. It's visual.
Yeah,
no doubt. We all enjoy, you know, how much work goes into cosplay, and some of those cosplayers are true talents. But if 90% of the feed is of cosplayers, they're going to come to the conclusion that's what people want. But I think Mike Negan coming back, he understands the value of pros, Rob, how to treat pros correctly, and also the value of educational content. So I think I'm encouraged. I am going to do the best I can with the 3 hours that I have, but I'm encouraged that I think certain shows, Rob, not all shows, certain shows are getting the message.
All right, let's go to the comments just real quick. So if the cons are not promoting comics, they shouldn't be called comic cons. They're fan expos. They're anime cons. Be clear with the gathering. I mean, I've always called them pop culture cons because I feel that's more what they are these days. You know, you're getting, like I said, the voice actors and celebrities, and you know, you look at San Diego, and it's, you know, for a while and it still kind of is. I've never been out, but I'm just seeing what I see. It's Hollywood Con. You know, and that's what it looks like to me from a viewer, seeing the ads, seeing the advertisements, you know what I mean? Like seeing the panels that they're posting. I'm not seeing a lot of comic. I see all this stuff from TV shows and movies that they push, you know? New York Comic Con has a lot of the same thing. What celebrities, they think that's what's going to bring people in the door. I miss the days when I went to a Comic Con and it was comics. It was dealers, and you know, it had that smell of old books that you just you know, little sometimes nervous to bring home and touch, you know, because it's going to smell up your house, but you're like, it doesn't matter, you just leave the window open for a few days, even in the middle of winter, and you just let that air, you just love those old books, you know, and you don't see them anymore.
Well, I think the problem is they want the prestige without the effort.
Yeah,
they want to be called a Comic-Con because a Comic-Con will draw, because they're expecting people like Buddy, people like me, people like you to be in the Artist Alley. Because I said this to someone who had made a comment today, and they're like, well, I don't see the big deal. Go to an Artist Alley and watch how people surround a person creating something. Go watch them look at the comic books. And we're seeing it in Florida. The shows who aren't paying attention to creators and aren't attracting creators, people walk in and they walk right back out. They've talked to the 5 creators. They're not going to sit around all day to look at toys. They're not going to sit around all day to look through long boxes. A lot of there are collectors, don't get me wrong, who will sit through long boxes all day. But your general audience wants to be entertained. If you're not putting on panels, if you're not motivating someone, because you have a lot of creators who show up at these shows. You have a lot of fans who want to connect and just talk at these shows, and you're not giving them anything. They walk in and see Funko Pops, and I personally see Funko Pops as a stock that's dropping right now.
Yeah.
They see Funko Pops, and they're just not interested anymore. And there's this oversaturation that's really dangerous. The more you do something, the less special it is. There's a reason the Comic Cons only used to happen once a year in New York, or twice with Big Apple. I grew up in New York. It only happened twice. Now they're doing them at street fairs. Good idea, but again, you're taking away. New York Comic Con will always be gigantic, but it'll hurt the smaller shows in Long Island because now you don't have to go to Long Island. You can just stay and go to the street fair. Is that where we want to be?
I think that, we get the con that they build from last year's feedback. Going back to what I said earlier, Rob, if we're not telling the conventions what we value and attending the panels that we value and filling our stream with examples of creators in Artist Alley, art that you bought, it could be shopping, it could be anything. So a con could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's how you give feedback to the conventions, by attending those panels. And again, I'm enthusiastic about education. And I think Comic Book School we put on really great programming. There are other great programming, educational, that I attend, and I think these teams put on great programming as well. You do have to tweet them out. You do have to share them to Facebook, and you do have to tag that Comic Con promoter and let them know this is what we want to see. And part of it is our responsibility. And I think it's the only way it's going to change is if you do what you're doing, Rob. Raise your voice, raise the awareness that this is something that we value, whatever it is that you value.
Yeah, and I think that you're spot on. But here's something the promoters aren't realizing: the fans are complaining to us at the table. We are literally hearing the feedback while they're ignoring it, running a show. And a smaller show, these guys are just ignoring it. They don't care. They don't listen. I've interacted with some of them. I have seen people where I've given them the message, they didn't listen, and I've seen their shows fail. This year, especially, across the entire comic book industry, Comic Cons are now down in attendance. San Diego was down, which shocked everyone. And I was told it had amazing energy. I was told that it really felt like Comic Cons were finally back. But then we found out that they were also down in attendance, and not a small amount. They were saying, the last estimate I heard was about 20% down over the previous years. That's the estimate. And they didn't expect that. And I think New York Comic Con will be a testing ground of it. And I think New York Comic Con is going to suffer because they just once again, mask mandates. That makes it very hard to talk. So it's going to be a hard year for New York Comic Con.
Do they require us to have masks?
Yeah, they just updated that they will require it.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Polio, the monkeypox. Once again,
I don't look good in a mask, Rob.
It's for me. It's.
I mean, if I had like a full ski mask, I would look good, but it just accentuates my fat head.
Well, for me, it's a bigger problem. I'm actually starting to lose my hearing because when I worked in a tire shop, they didn't think to give us any ear protections the years I worked in there. So I have tinnitus. So when someone does this, I have a lot of trouble hearing them. And my voice is a projecting voice, but when you put something in front of my voice, I start to sound like, a recorded message underwater. And people are like, what are you saying? Because the growl becomes so intense under it. So masks are definitely been hurting shows, but I think promoters' vanity, because like you said, here's the thing I keep hearing everyone say, well, they're doing it to make money. If you keep doing something to make money, suddenly you find you're out of business because you have to, and Buddy said it perfectly, you have to listen to the feedback. And when the creators are giving the feedback that they're hearing on the floor, all they hear is, oh, these people are whining. I can just get someone who sells Funko Pops, and they'll pay more for the table. What's going to happen, and this is happening in Florida, and I hear in other spaces, people don't want to go to flea markets. Walmart charges less, especially in an economy that's harder. All those vendors are not going to be as attractive. But comic books, and Buddy knows this from the history of comics, do better in bad economies. Because we get to offer an escape and we get to offer them somewhere to go and somewhere to live in their minds because they can't afford to go to that $50 movie theater. But comic books, you can look through a couple times, you can really think about it, and then you can go talk to other people about comic books. That's why Netflix is so popular. Half the shows people are watching, they don't like them. They just watch them to talk to someone else about them. Yeah. It's the truth. We want to be social. And that's what Comic Cons were. But now they're cosplayers who, like everyone says, they show up. They don't pay for anything, especially the guests. The cosplayer guests are sometimes some of the most disruptive people, because they will talk to people in front of your table. They will sit there. I have this famous thing where I start pitching them, and I mean like aggressively pitching, and I won't leave them alone. I'm like a dog with a bone, and they finally walk away from my table, and I get my table back. But it's true, because they didn't spend any money to be there. They think it's a joke, and they don't take it serious. Now, to that credit, I just want to say there are professional cosplayers who know the deal, who are very professional and very respectful of everyone's space and time, and they are lovely, and they're a pleasure to meet and talk to. But those are the ones at New York Comic Con. In Florida, they invite the girl with 50,000 followers, not realizing that 49,000 of them come from her OnlyFans account.
Oh my God!
I'm just being honest.
Rob, you're on fire. What's the name of this person?
I want to ask you guys one question, then I want to go to one of the comments. How do you guys feel? And this is a personal issue with me, and I don't knock people for doing it, but I don't do it because I don't believe in doing it. But what about the artists that are filling up Comic Cons that don't actually create stuff and just draw pinups of characters they love that they've never worked on? You know, I had a friend refer to them as print pirates.
Print pirates. Wow.
Yeah, and like they take up a lot. I'm not saying New York Comic Con Artist Alley, but at the smaller shows, their money is green, right? A promoter will take it, will give you a spot, but you know, they're not really creators like, you know, we are here creating books, trying to push a product line out. How do you guys feel about them at shows?
You trying to get me in trouble? I'm gonna let Buddy go first. I'm gonna let Buddy be the back. I know someone's gonna clip this, and I'm gonna be on a video. This is gonna be, look what Rob said. So I'm gonna let Buddy be the first one out the gate on this one.
You know, I obviously don't speak from a legal perspective, particularly on big properties. I mean, if I saw somebody taking one of my properties, my Kickstarter starts in 2 weeks for Apocalypse Boulevard. I don't know how I slipped that in, but what I want people to know, though, is that, you know, I have purchased those custom posters. My kids love them. They want the turtles and things like that. It's tough, Michael. I think it's a tough line to walk. There is an artist who is making art upon someone else's IP. I don't think there's an easy answer, because I do think they are artists. I mean, there certainly are artists. If they're doing an anime interpretation of Star Wars, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not denying they're not artists. I'm just saying, you know, should they be at shows and filling up spots when, you know, they're just really regurgitating, you know, something like, okay, you know, John Romita Jr. just started drawing Spider-Man again. If I was a John Romita Jr. Spider-Man fan, which I'm not saying I'm not, I loved his 90s run, I just haven't read the new stuff, and I wanted a Spider-Man picture, wouldn't I try to go look for John Romita Jr. as opposed to just,
I don't know, what if you were a fan of Mr. Andersin and he was a fantabulous artist who is a yet undiscovered talent, and you said, I want to get my favorite character, Barbara, illustrated by somebody, whatever it is. Why not? Right. And I don't subscribe to the idea that one necessarily blocks out the other. In New York Comic Con, yeah, we have a very limited, finite amount of space, but I'm sure at the Florida show, there's plenty of room for everybody. So I'm not buying that it's, you know, if somebody's selling prints of Disney characters, you know, in pirate costumes, they're necessarily going to block out somebody doing their own original creation. So I don't buy that. I do say that there is a possibility, especially at NYCC or San Diego, that will happen. I love comic art. I just love comic art. So it's a hard answer for me to come around. I don't feel like I even have a good answer for that. And I've seen it for as long as you guys have.
Yeah.
I bought the work. I've supported the work. I've looked and wondered, will they ever shut these people down? I think it was important to shut down the VHS pirates and the DVD pirates. That's real piracy. I think it's on the line. Do you want to say Greg Horn can't sell prints of a character that didn't work? I don't know what Greg Horn is. I'm just a big fan of his work. I don't know if he's been commissioned for everything. I just used him as an example. I love Greg Horn's work, but if he weren't commissioned to do something, would you still like that work? I would say you probably would.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Rob, what do you think?
I think that if you have a disclaimer and a warning, now is the time to flash it really quick.
Sorry I don't, but
this is going to be controversial and upset people. First off, fan art is illegal. Whether you like it or not, it is. And because of fan art, artists were able to charge more for things that they should have never been charging for to begin with. This led to actual Comic-Con tables being charged more because no longer was it able to, most artists had to go off of original art in the beginning. There weren't these banners behind anyone. Everyone was doing original art, and they were hoping people would buy original art. I remember you used to pay $10 for an Ashcan comic that was made at Kinko's. This was the reality of Comic-Cons. Fan art and publishing and all printing of all these prints, it made these artists able to afford pricing for tables that regular creators can't. You're charging $20 for a picture of Iron Man with you never creating it, and I'm selling a comic book for $5 that's got 32 pages, but that same fan will be like, oh, I don't want to spend $5 on a comic book, but I'll buy that print that'll never have value for $20. So they were
my
able
first Ashcan, guys. Sorry, just wanted to show that. My very first Ashcan from 1990, like 6 or 7.
So you have these creators, right, who are using someone else's property to make money. They have caused Comic-Cons to be able to charge more for tables, and it has priced out a lot of creators who no longer think there's value. 2020 changed a lot, including the fact creators learned how to make money online without Comic-Cons, without comic book stores. They've actually been able to change and flip the script where we don't really need them anymore. We want to be part of it, but for the right purposes. Now, I do want to say to the fan art artists out there, Marvel making blank covers has endorsed what they're doing, in my opinion. They have muddied the water and said, we're okay with this. Do it. Go for it. Here, blank covers. They're encouraging it. For them, it's free advertisement. So if you're a talented artist, why would you not do art? Realistically, I mean, this is how you survive. This is how you get to Marvel and DC, because that's the path now. You go to shows, you sell all this stuff. What it's hurting is original content providers, people who are making their own comic books, because they're now struggling to pay for a $450 table at C2E2. Do you know how many comic books a person has to sell to get $450?
A lot.
And that's not even taking into consideration the printing costs. And then you'll have people like, well, that's what you have Kickstarter for. If you're trying to use Kickstarter to go to Comic-Cons, you're missing the point of Kickstarter. You should be able to make that money or it's not worth going. Kickstarter is something that should be going into your next book, not paying for Comic-Con tables. So it's a very muddy area. And because of what Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and all the others have done by encouraging this, because if any of these properties really wanted to stop fan art, you know how they get it to start? They sue New York Comic-Con. You see this in your alley. You're allowing this to happen. Instead of going after the individual artists, we're going to come after you, New York Comic-Con. They do that 1 year, and there will be no fan art in any building ever again. They like it. They've muddied the waters. They have made it so it's something. That's why when they go around handing out cease and desist orders, that's just them flexing. And it's usually the people who are making T-shirts. It's usually the people who have an online site who are stepping into realms they really shouldn't be at. They're okay with you being at a Comic-Con selling a Spider-Man print because their movie's coming out in 6 months, and they want it in the zeitgeist. You are the marketing firm for them, and if you're making money, you're making money. But ultimately, it has gotten to the point where you can't simply remove it. You can't point fingers. I once called fan art theft because it is, in a lot of ways, theft. But it's theft that's allowed. It's the guy leaving the back door open saying, oh, I hope no one takes all these expensive items that are outside my backyard now. They're letting it happen, and the real shame is the original IP creators who can't sometimes afford to get to these tables because we're being priced out. $450 for C2E2. How do you
Really?
do?
Is that how much it costs?
Yeah, I saw it online. $450. And
Wow.
C2E2 is an amazing show. Me personally, I think I could leverage to make that money back, but then you got to add in hotels. You got to add in travel. By the time you're done, why am I going? And C2E2 is a big enough show that the networking aspect, and Buddy could talk more about this, is super huge. So that might pay for itself due to business relationships if you know how to package yourself right and handle yourself well. But the guy with one comic book, two comic books, he's never going to compete at C2E2. And I'll give credit to C2E2. People like Mike Negan, I think they know not to put guys who can't get, or guys or gals, I say guys is a generic term. I think they know not to pick the person with two books, knowing that they can't really be successful at such a show. You kind of have to bring a catalog. You have to be ready as a creator, and you have to be realistic. I see a lot of creators get really upset because they spent $1,000 and only made $500 because they weren't realistic with what they had to do. To make a profit at a $5 book, you know how many you have to sell to make $1,000? And they don't sit and do that. And then they don't take into account how much did you spend to print those books, to pay for the art of the book. And they don't understand their own math. So that's kind of their fault too. Gamal Hennessy, great person to listen to. He actually breaks down a lot of that stuff with his Comic Publishing Institute. And Buddy Scalera does a really good job of that too with all of his panels, if you can see it, because they'll explain it and break it down to you. And if you're not educating yourself, you're part of your own problem.
Yeah, it is. Economics of cons has gotten rough, Rob. I agree with you. There was a time when I could sell my books and make some money. I just feel like it's, yeah, Michael. Yep.
No, it's okay.
It is definitely, it has changed. Writers could make money at one time. We would sell our product. I don't know exactly what the change was, but it's hard. It's hard. And I don't say it's cosplay or print sellers. I don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. And I wish I knew, because you'd want to see that in other regional shows as well, Rob. And it's tough. I live in the New York, New Jersey area. We don't have many regional shows. We just don't. You know, we have the big show, and then we have to go travel far for the regional shows. By the way, I looked up the one you were talking about. They have a lip syncing contest as one of their panels. So
wow.
These lips are going down to Fort Myer, and I'm going to sink my heart out.
Nice.
Hold on, we got some comments. I don't know where to start.
Anyone that compliments me at the first place, like, let's forget Rob. Just
talk about my nice hair. The ones about my nice
beautiful hair. Rob, you are blessed with hair.
Okay, so let's look. First of all, I just want to say, Mike Wilkie says I'd rather create and sell my own work rather than own someone else's images. I can agree with everything.
Go back to Wilkie. All right, so here's the thing. Wilkie, I don't even know him. Is he nice?
He's a great guy. He has been on the show. He is a cartoonist.
Is he bigger than me? Can he beat me up? I don't want.
There's a possibility, I think.
All right, so I'm gonna take a risk here.
Yeah.
Mike Wilkie, here's the thing. You go to a con, you set up your characters like Gracia had his ash can, right? Mm-hmm. You sell all of, I don't know, 10 over the entire weekend. Person sitting right next to you is doing turtles prints, sexy turtles. It can't count the money fast enough. Do you next year start to go, I don't know, maybe I'll mix it up a little bit? Then you do it on your table and you have all your turtles prints, and then you have your own creative IP. The only thing that sells are your turtle prints. You make table, you make money. At what point do you go, oh, well, I see what people want to buy? I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that, like, and D. Alley loves pirates, right? And remember last year at the table next to us, there was this creator couldn't take the money fast enough. There was a line, and people loved the work. I don't know. Rob, I'm not as hardline on the theft part because I don't feel like they're stealing from individual I don't know. I don't know if that's even a.
Well, from a legal standpoint, it's not theft. I said it. Let me say it is not. It is trademark and copyright violations.
Okay.
I was wrong for calling it theft. That was something I famously said, and I changed my mind because of all the.
All right.
To declare that.
But it is a hard thing, right, Rob? I mean, think about it. Somebody is coming and they want to participate and they make their art of sexy Disney characters. I don't know, whatever. And they get away with it. Does that sort of like, if Jax walked into the store and stole some gum and got away with it, doesn't make it right. Right. Somebody stole stuff from me at New York Comic Con one year. They got away with it. Didn't make it right, but they got away with it.
But it's also not our call because it's IP. It is the owner's call. And if they're not doing something about it, we have nothing to say. Did it hurt the industry? I believe so, but it helped artists. So now writers.
How does it hurt the industry, though?
Well, newer creators, writers aren't going to be at many shows. So you might be missing a generational talent, like we almost missed out on the Schulsters because they weren't seen the right way. Where a place like New York Comic Con used to have the brightest new writers and creators giving ash cans. That's impossible. Yeah. No one can afford to do an ash can anymore because no one will buy it. Comics have gotten to the point where everyone expects it to. I saw a guy on one of the TikToks go, "Oh, how dare they charge a cover price or $2 for a digital comic?" I laid into him. I was like, "Excuse me, I'm sorry. Did it not cost the same amount of money to make the printed version versus the digital? You're buying the IP. I don't hear you complaining about how DVD movies are charged the same price when you want to download them or own them on your thing as they charge the same thing because you're not charging for what it's printed on. You're charging the creation costs." And the guy backtracked fast enough that I thought that he was in a race.
And Michael, I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Rob's right. My Kickstarter launches in about 2 weeks, and I feel like that's where people can truly get behind me. That's it. So keep an eye out for my Kickstarter, supported by Rob Andersin, who is my what would you call, like my coach or something, Rob?
I'm now taking the title of actual comics coach. You know how the life coaches? I'm the comics coach now. I'm the fixer. I'm the guy you come to when you need to, be taken outside, slapped around.
I don't want to be slapped around.
Yes, you do. That's why you picked the safe word.
My safe word is I don't want to be slapped around.
Then we know.
Then we know if I could say it fast enough. So
Mike had to hit fast enough that he can't get the words out. What are you trying to say?
The correct answer is pretty soon I'll be having a Kickstarter thanks to the encouragement of Rob Andersin.
And I'd love to have you back on sometime in October to discuss that then, if you can.
Michael, I'm here for you, pal. Anything you need.
Thank you.
I understand that you're going to be doing a lot more animation these days.
Yes, but yes, absolutely. But I'm never going to leave comics. Just so you know. No, listen. I have a love for comics, like you guys do. But I've lost my passion for creating comics at the moment. I lost my passion because of the industry, because of the things I've seen, whether they're at cons, whether it's seen between what's going on at companies. I just don't have that passion to create at the moment. I feel like I will again. I have ideas, and there are things that I've, friends I've talked with, and it's like, wow, I just feel like going home and drawing a comic.
Yeah.
But I know at the end of the day, it's not what I want to be doing. Also, animation is, like I said, my true passion. I could sit all day and stare into my computer and animate, and it's a little bit more fun for me to tell a story that way. But and some of the reason, like, I lost my passion is, and this is something we talked about before, Buddy, and like before we went on the air, and you're like, let's bring it up on here. But what the industry is doing, and I will say, I hate to bring up the term, but that woke culture that we gotta force, diversity, and we gotta force these things and check boxes in a book to meet these standards that people aren't buying. Sales are going down. No, I've worked with kids, like you, I'm really big into education. I have run kids sections at comic book conventions where I've sat down and taught kids about how to make comics, how to draw characters. I've taught, privately. I've visited schools, libraries, camps. I've run my own programming. I love education. I love comic education. But when I work with little kids, and I'm talking first, second, third graders, they're reading Dogman.
They're
By the
reading
time
what?
Dogman and Catman.
Dogman.
Those are the books. When you get to the older kids in middle school, they're reading books like Smile. And by the time they hit like 8th grade, it's all manga. And after that, it's manga. Superheroes don't sell. All right. And the books that are selling are graphic novels. And this is something I wanted to bring up when you mentioned digital comics, Rob. The people who are reading comics these days, and I'm not talking people like us, but like the ones who are trying to make our audience, are online. They're reading digital stuff. They're reading things on webtoons. They're buying digital downloads. They're not buying floppies. To have a 32-page floppy, to me, really doesn't make sense unless you can get it in a store. And this is just my own personal opinion. So if you guys disagree with me, feel free to. I think the way to go is, if you're not going to be making some sort of large format in the sense of story, like graphic novel thing, at minimum 64 pages, I don't think you're going to be selling a lot. I don't, people talk also about black and white doesn't sell, but manga is all black and white grayscale, and it's outselling American comics. And this is the type of stuff, and don't get me wrong, I read manga. I love manga. I watch anime. I enjoy it. But I also love American stuff. I love Superman. Dr. Fate's my all-time favorite superhero. But, Superman, Green Lantern, I'm a DC guy. They're not selling. They're not making the money that, that they should be. And it's because superheroes outside of the movies, I feel, are out. That's just my own personal opinion. But this is what's kind of made me say I'd rather do something else, and I'd rather animate more. How do you guys feel about what I just said?
Well, there was a lot in there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I agree with some of what you said. In terms of, let's just start with the sales. Comics, as Rob noted, are up. So I guess it depends on who the publisher is, and certainly fueled by the pandemic, certainly fueled by TV shows and movies. Sandman graphic novels and collections are up.
Yeah.
Walking Dead is up. There are other comics that are also up that don't necessarily have a movie behind it. Spawn is up. Right. Some of it is literally marketing and advertising and promotion. Year over year, comic sales of print comics are up. But as you noted, Michael, that includes those collected editions of manga. So, does it create something of a false positive that sales are up and it includes that genre? I don't know, maybe. And no, they don't count Scholastic. Smile is Raina Tellemere and Tellemare. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Dogman, Captain Underpants. Those are not included in comic shop numbers. And Scholastic sells a lot of books, a lot of comics, and a lot of graphic novels. I can see how it can dampen your enthusiasm. But you're doing the right thing. You're pivoting to something that you continue to be enthusiastic about. And I think that anytime you're disillusioned as a creator, you can put your rage on the page. Like, comics were never apolitical. First issue of Captain America, Captain America's punching Hitler in the jaw. We should note that we were not yet in the war.
Yes.
Right? That was one of the first representations. Captain America punched Hitler, and we had not yet declared them an enemy. I think that there is a lot of room for a lot of different voices. I think if you're angry about something, political or otherwise, and I might disagree with you vehemently, but I think this is a great way to put your thoughts on the paper. Now, I don't honestly, I've heard of some of the factions in comics, and I don't keep up with the controversies.
Yeah.
Put it on the page, right? Put it on the page. Don't argue on message boards and in Twitter and on your podcasts and on your blog. I mean, it's fine. Put it on the page. Prove it. Tell a great story. And if that is going to anger some people, you're ready to defend your work with more work. I think that's what you need to be doing. And I hate when people become disillusioned, Michael, where they just feel like it's taken the wind out of their sails. Get angry and tell a better story. I just think that, and no one is stopping you. You're your own blocker. Yeah. Rob, you used to say that one of the things that influenced you that I used to say was, don't wait around for permission. You don't need permission, right? There is nobody that's going to give you permission, nor are they going to rescind that permission. So I think you have to just go ahead, and I think I'm going to trademark it. Put your rage on the page. Be angry and tell angry stories if that's how you feel. Be happy and tell happy stories. No one says you have to do anything, but don't let the wind come out of your sails. Don't become deflated. Get a Rob Andersin who will say, quit complaining and go put it on the page. Rob, I'm going to hand it off to you there.
Honestly, I just create the comics I want to read. I don't listen to any of the other noise. My job is to promote what I promote. No one else's work, and it's not. If I ain't paying for it, I ain't talking about it. It's just not my business. And I think if people stop trying to become famous on the internet by hating on something, they do themselves a service and everyone else a service. I mean, The Little Mermaid's already been reviewed 3 times over, and the movie hasn't even been released yet. So this is the society we live in. The whole woke thing. They're just doing it for that reason. Did you put money in? Are you producing it? So why is it your business? And I think it's like Buddy said. You want to be angry? Go make a comic about how you hate how people are woke. Yeah. See how well that sells. Yeah. You'll know real quick how many people support you. And who knows? I mean, there are groups out there who rely on hate to sell comic books. Yeah. But at least they're selling comic books and they're not actually doing something silly. So let them put all that rage into something. Maybe when they read their own words, they'll realize that there's a little growth that they need.
And they're fictional characters. I saw this thread complaining that they had changed gender and race of certain characters and the creators. And I think it was Neil Gaiman was like, it's my property, man. I do what I want, right? Yeah. But I'm going to counter what Redhead Ed says. I don't think we're only superheroes, as evidenced by Sandman.
Yeah, I was going to put that up.
Right? Sandman, Walking Dead. You can go back to Road to Perdition and Two Guns and all kinds of other properties that are not superhero.
Yeah.
And Hollywood is not the necessarily the bellwether of are comics good or not. It's just one translation of the media. Yeah. I just think what is selling well, right? If you sell out of your Western comic, you print 200 of them, you sell all 200, and people are happy, and they ask you when the next one comes out, is that not the definition of success? No. And what is your definition of success? My definition of success is completion, right? Rob, we did that with the page 1, panel 1. It wasn't about the necessarily would it be the quality, and quality I'm putting in air quotes is subjective. When we were little, Michael, and we went to school and we drew a picture and somebody used a magnet and pinned it to the refrigerator, they weren't celebrating necessarily the quality of the output, but the passion and the completion. And people, as they get older, self-censor. And I just think, even if you're not that good, if you have something to say, you're the most interesting creator. Rob, I think you're correct. If you are anti or pro any movement and you have something interesting to say and you find an interesting way to say it, attitudes change, right? Certain literature doesn't age well. Certain literature ages better than others. But if you're a creator and you're ready to put your pencil to paper, You don't need permission. How about this? How about I'm gonna, Michael, Rob, would you please grant permission for creators to put their work out there right now?
Absolutely.
All right, good. You've been
Sure.
granted permission.
Yeah.
Just go out and do it. Stop chatting and work. You got to put the work in.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I've become, if you want to use the word disillusional, I think that's the word you used about it. I feel I just lost my passion. I just,
Okay.
I used to be nonstop comic writing, drawing nonstop. I just feel and I'm not saying it's because of the diversity push agenda pushing type of feel that are in books. I'm okay with any change that you want to make to a character to make them better. That's how I feel, and I don't care if Redhead Ed asked about other comics. I haven't read a superhero book in years.
But that's the point, Michael.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, I read a lot of fantasy. I read, I actually just started reading Power Rangers. I've never read them in my life up until about 2 months ago. And I'm finding that I'm loving them.
Sometimes when you age out of something that you were passionate about when you were 12 to 14, you can age out of certain things.
Yeah.
The things that I thought were cool when I was 12 to 14, maybe I've aged out of. And I don't just mean comics. I mean other types of activities.
Yeah.
I think there are times where literally Captain Underpants is just not made for you. And you can make the same argument that people who saw Star Wars in 77 in the theater were angry about the Star Wars that were made today. They're like, whoa. Well, right. It's not made for you, 50-something. It is literally made for an age bracket demo, and you're not it. And people are getting angry that it's not made for them. And it's like, that's right. It's not made for you.
Yeah. Well, people also have a strange sense of nostalgia over the last decade plus. It happened with the pop figures. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big Hanna-Barbera fan. Hard to find Hanna-Barbera merchandise. I have a bunch of Hanna-Barbera pops to the left of me here.
Here's the thing. You said something very interesting, and everybody that's in the audience, consider this. Rob, think about this. We are nostalgic primarily about things that we consumed between about 11 and 14, right? That is the common nostalgia band. You are buying things that were meaningful to you between 11 and about 14. Maybe you could stretch it a little on either side, but we always go back to that time. This is not me saying, this is actually a psychological studied phenomenon that we think the things that why was that, Michael? Why was that? We had less responsibility. Less responsibility. Life was easier. You look back at that and you whimsically feel that. You look at your Hanna-Barbera characters, your children don't have that same whimsical feel because it doesn't release them. Now that those things maybe don't release the same endorphins for you because now they've changed it, they've modernized it, it's hard for you. It's a psychological thing. Nostalgia is a powerful force.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I mean, all the stuff on my wall that you're looking at behind me is something that inspires me. I don't put my own artwork up. And if there's something I've had, I've gotten things, and like you're mentioning from the past, like if you want to see, I can tell you all what's back there. So next to the Lord of the Rings poster is an autographed Beetle Bailey.
Go full screen. You got the three of us up. Go full screen.
So I got a autographed Beetle Bailey. I got a Phil Ortiz autographed Simpsons. If you guys, know who he is, right?
Nope.
Well, he was a character designer on The Simpsons. He designed like a lot of the backgrounds, as well as I think he did like Ralph Wiggum and a couple of those characters. And then I met him at a show. He had some prints.
I admire your razor sharp symmetry as well, and the ability to get everything balanced. That brings a level of OCD that I can appreciate.
I got what is that? A model sheet of the Mighty Mightor from Hanna-Barbera. I'm a big Alex Toth fan. He's really inspired I come from a less is more theory, kind of like he has there. Underneath him is Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossible. Well, Frankenstein Jr. model sheet from Hanna-Barbera from who's the one that spun off them? I'm blanking on their name now. Ruby and Spears. There's Fang Face over there, and underneath it is an autograph from Erwin Hasen, who created Dondi. I'm a big comic strip guy. I always consider myself.
Am I right now? 11 and 14. Think about why that opens your heart, because it reminds you of a time in your life where things were better and easier. Now, kids consuming those characters as different, they look different, they smell different, they are different, or they do different things. I guess this woke concept, and we are all seeing it with the Sandman controversy and the Lord of the Rings controversy. It's not for you anymore. It's just not for you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. I mean, I haven't watched Lord of the Rings. I'm not anti what they're saying on that show yet. I haven't seen it. I like to make my own opinion.
Did you watch Sandman?
I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes. I thought it was okay, and I watched it with my wife. And I said, "What'd you think?" She's like, "I could take it or leave it." I said, "Okay." So we turned it off to watch something else. And I said, "If you don't ever want to go back to it, and I want to watch it, I'll put it on." But I
loved it. I thought it was stunning, and once you realized who the characters were, okay, they're different races or different genders, whatever.
Okay.
You know, it to me, it's sung. It was just a great, well-produced. Obviously, Gaiman wrote it. Well-produced television show, and there are people who are online who took great umbrage with the changing of certain aspects, gender, race. And Gaiman came forward and like, "Hey man, I'm the creator. I say what it is."
Exactly. I don't disagree with anything he said. It's, you know, when I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But
I'm rambling. Rob, or I don't even. Come on, Rob. Agree with me or disagree with me. Give me some Rob.
I'm not the typical person. You're asking the wrong person. I've evolved the whole time. I'm a creator, so I've stayed with comic books. I don't have a good childhood to look back on either. So while comics were an escape, they've been a constant escape in my life. It's helped me learn to read. It's helped my son learn to read and get past his autism. For me, comic books is there's an honest to God love with comic books. I still read superhero books. I'm not one of those guys who's like, I hate Marvel. They haven't done anything great since the 90s.
Yeah.
When was the last time you read a Marvel book in the 90s? How would you know that they're good or bad now then?
Right.
Oh, well, they're just not worth my time. No, you're not worth my time because you want to hate on something you're not investing in and just saying it doesn't attract me anymore because you don't want to admit you're not into comics anymore. That's the hard part.
Robin, and think about what you just said was brilliant. You're not buying it, so Marvel's not making it for you. They're making it for you, Rob, because I still get my comic bag. It's behind me over here. I just picked up. Yep, there you go. I picked up the latest issue of Amazing Fantasy 1000. You got Batman. I'm still buying them. I don't like all of them.
Library.
I don't like all of them, but
I can't afford everything. Libraries now give out the floppies. I go to the library once a month, and I just read everything they've gotten in the past.
I've been doing the same thing. Our library does floppies too. It's
2 hours. Yeah. 2 hours. Read everything in the library that's new because they rotate the stuff out. I'm a real fan. DC app, Marvel app. I'm reading comics. I love comics. And I want to see what they're doing there different and interesting. And I don't like everything they're doing. I think some things do not hit for me. Like the beginning of, and I say this, and this is a perfect example. The beginning of Miss Marvel was horrible to me. I didn't like her character. I didn't like the mom dynamic. I thought she was a whiny millennial. But she went from a whiny millennial to a hero that I respected. So it was almost like very brilliantly, they knew that people like me would sit through the whole thing and they were paying me off at the end. But they knew they needed to get that younger generation to connect with that character so the younger generation could come with me to the next movie, the next thing they're doing. It's actually quite brilliant. They talked in all that kid fancy speak that those kids do nowadays while I'm rocking on my chair. I don't know what these kids are saying anymore. And then they got me to a point where it was a hero story, and I could completely get down with that. These new exciting characters, a history lesson that blew me away. I'd known a part of it, not the whole part, not how bad it was. And this was brilliantly done because I kept an open mind. I didn't go online and go, I hate She-Hulk because she said Bruce doesn't know how to control his temper. I thought it was a cheap shot, but I watched the whole series, and that's what it's going to be. Some things are just cheap shots. Writers do it all the time. There's a ton of cheap shots in my book towards people, and some aren't smart enough to know it's about them, and some are, and that's even more fun when they know it's about them, or they know that I'm picking.
Rob, thinking about you just triggered a memory. Remember,
I trigger a lot of things.
Remember the first movie, Men in Black? Well, the original comic book had 2 white male characters. Will Smith comes in. Would you say, "Oh, you can't do that"? Of course not. You have watched it as a movie, even though I read it first as a comic book. Will Smith comes in and he's awesome. I mean, he's great. So people with this woke thing, Michael, I think they're picking and choosing.
Yeah.
And they're picking and choosing, and the argument seems a little specious to me when they say that comic sales are going down when comic sales are going up.
And I'll also say this to Buddy's point. People had asked me on a show like this, because I had said that sometimes I have problems with them changing it, but that's because of my fandom. You're not recreating. What's a casting director if they can't cast the characters I love the right way? And that was my argument. So someone said, would you have a problem with Batman being a black man? And I said, absolutely I would. And they're like, what? Why would you have a problem with that? I was like, it can't be the same Bruce Wayne, not the one we knew. Because the minute you turn him black and his family gets killed, it's Empire now. It's, well, what were they doing? Are they shady people? Because that would be the narrative that you'd have to address. And people were like, wow, I never thought of that.
Well, Rob, could Batman be black, but Bruce Wayne
can't be? So Batman,
so Black Batman could be black. It's just,
but it couldn't be Bruce Wayne. And I said, I made
Bruce
that very
Wayne
clear.
is defined
And I
as
said, the minute there's a black man in that mask, the cops are going to turn and aim a little better. They suddenly are going to be able to hit Batman, and not all the bullets are going to go around him. So they're a white guy. They're like, I don't know, maybe he's a good guy. I put my gun this way. I look like I'm firing. He's a black guy. The SWAT team is going to be out. And then 2 years later, exactly what I called happened in the what did DC call it? Oh, DC had the future state, and they addressed that, and they addressed the fact that he felt he couldn't do that thing, and I thought it was brilliant. And DC, I'm still waiting for my check because that was my idea.
Interesting. I mean, I'm really enjoying listening to your points of view, and I just want, Buddy, for you to understand. I'm not saying I don't agree with some of the stuff that they've done, or I don't accept what they've done. I use the term woke just because that's the term that goes around. If you're going to do something to make a character better, I am 100% behind that. Always. I want, whether it's a change, I could be one of those people complaining about certain movies, but you know what? I just recently, I didn't see it in the theater, but I just recently watched on Disney Plus, Thor: Love and Thunder. I have not liked anything Marvel has done after Endgame. I just don't feel they're developing characters I care about. Not like how they built it for the movies. But I loved the movie. I thought it was a fun movie. Was it the best movie Marvel ever made? No, but it was fun. And I sat there and I enjoyed it. And will I watch it again? Absolutely. So it's not, whatever changes they've made for Thor in that, and the humor that they did, because I was one of those people, like, I don't like Thor humorous. I like the way, Kirby started him off, where he was just, he was a warrior, but then, these changes where they turned him into almost like the comic relief in his own movies, I didn't like that. Loved this here. I thought it, the comedy eventually just hit for Thor. They weren't doing it right. However, this happened for Love and Thunder. It worked, and I loved it. So as long as they're doing something to enhance the story or make the character better, I am 100% behind.
Come on, you guys are creators. Mm-hmm. No creator sets out to make a comic that's not good, right?
Yeah.
No creator sets out to shake things up with the intention of going like, oh, I'm going to make sales go down.
Yeah.
The creators who come in and want to shake things up, that are successful at it, mm-hmm. the ones that are successful at it, we celebrate. Mm-hmm. Maybe the ones that didn't manage to pull all of the things together that have to be pulled together, we're like, oh, that was ridiculous. Killing Gwen Stacy is genius, but maybe killing another character is not. And I just think that every creator sets out to do their best and doesn't always hit the mark. I certainly can admit, there was work of mine that I tried something and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But you come back next month and you try something else. Change is important to characters.
Yeah.
Right? I think you have a responsibility to change things. Otherwise, it is just redundant, and that will kill the sales. You look at early 1930s, 40s Batman and Superman, and they're, they are of their time. We have to make books of our time for the audience that is like Rob Anderson, putting out their money to buy it. I don't think anybody sets out to make a bad comic. The woke thing and the industry controversies frustrate me.
Yeah.
But I don't think that anybody sets out to make a bad comic.
I will say, though, hold on. I just want to put this out. I don't think they set out to put out a bad comic, but Michael's right. There are people who are deliberately doing things to piss people off. And we saw that in the last couple of years. They were taking characters and deliberately kind of doing things to them to piss off people and to put wording in books and to kind of, you had a male-dominated fan base and you were egging them on and gaslighting them on covers. That was actually happening. And I do have to, there is people who try to push, but that's also been in comics.
We celebrate comedians and movie directors and people who push the boundary, people who want to push your buttons, who don't shoot to please you. And I think, maybe they are trying to piss you off.
But they're offended by it instead of seeing the art in it. And I think that's the problem. Instead of seeing
offended by it.
The certain groups that I won't even mention their name, but they make the living off of being offended. The offended people, the ones who are like, oh my God, you saw that cover, or the She-Hulk moment. Oh my God, they said a woman can control her temper better. Oh, I don't know where they got that guy. I don't know why they think that is. You're screaming into the internet all about a fictional character in one line of a 30-minute episode. You're literally obsessing over 25 seconds of lines. I don't know why they think men can't control.
Rob, I think go back to you have made, and I don't know if you're willing to show them. You have made provocative comic books that are not middle of the road. Like, you are not an unafraid creator, and I think, okay, you are ready to bear the slings and arrows of controversy, and you will take it on the chin. If a creator is willing to stir the pot and be controversial and make a change to poke the bear, that maybe that's what the publisher and the creators want. And I don't know why everybody feels like there has to be so much harmony. This is fiction. It should raise an emotion. It should raise a reaction. It doesn't always have to be a positive reaction.
It all goes back to participation trophies, buddy. It all goes back to everyone thinks they have to participate to get a trophy now. So they all have to have their what it really is that social media, people misunderstand it. It's not your thought bubble, guys. It's your speech bubble. Social media is the speech bubble. Your messengers are for your thought bubbles. If we all followed that, it'd be a better place.
I would agree. And I would also agree that, if you are otherwise irritated by some sort of casting, Michael, you can go and you could make something that's thought-provoking, right? Like, if you want, or like, as you said, you're like, Sandman didn't grab me. Sandman grabbed me. I watched it all the way through. I was like,
I plan to watch it. It just isn't on my top 10 list right now. I'll get back to it at some point.
Yeah, but it didn't move you. It didn't move you to, there was other things in the queue that you'd prefer to watch. That's totally cool. This idea that we all have to get along, that's not the nature of fiction. You should put out the work that you think has merit. Not everybody's going to like it. Some of the things that I thought were the best work I ever did, I was amazed that people they didn't think it was good. I was like, I put my heart and soul into it. I thought it was great. They were like, man.
Yeah. No, listen, I think we've all made books in the past that like just didn't hit. And I'm sure I have a couple behind me, packed away in my drawer.
Tried.
Yeah, I tried.
You gave it a shot.
now, and you know what? And I will say this about with the animation, like I said, for me, animation was really my first love, and I think this happens to a lot of us. Like Rob, I learned to read through comics. I had reading issues growing up, and I know, we're gonna end soon. I know we went a little longer than probably we should have, but
That's
for
Rob's
most
fault.
for most of us growing up, before we're even introduced to a comic, we're introduced. Oh.
Buddy was done. He had enough of you.
Well, I'll say this. Hopefully, he shows back up.
Oh,
There
he
he
will.
goes. There he goes.
This is just Buddy. He clicked the wrong button.
I did not touch the computer.
You know
at
what's
all.
funny, Michael? I was controlling something. I thought I could control it because I thought it was my.
He kicked himself out. He
So
was trying to kick you out, Mike. He's like, I'm tired of this guy.
I literally bounced myself because I was like, oh, I'm pull something up and.
yeah, if you want to share your screen, you
No,
can
no,
do
no.
that,
It's good.
but,
It's getting late. I think
Yeah.
Aaron needs to go to bed.
All right, let me just finish my thought here, and then if you guys want to comment, I think most people, at least within our age range, grew up seeing cartoons before we saw comics. You know, my earliest cartoon memory is of something Hanna-Barbera, whether it was Peter Potamus, Ricochet Rabbit, or Magilla Gorilla. Those are like my earliest cartoon memories, and I fell in love with cartoons. Then I got introduced to newspaper strips. And then I got introduced to comic books, and I loved all of it. So for someone like me, animation is the thing that brought me into the world of storytelling. I went into comics, number one, because I really enjoy comics, but number two, I felt it was easier than animating and I didn't need a team of people. Now, and we're going back to the 90s when I started. So computers were just coming into more mainstream for everyday people to animate with. These days, I could pay $60 a month and get the Adobe suite, and I have Adobe Animate, Adobe, Premiere and After Effects, and I can animate everything. I can get sound recording. I could do all that stuff, or I can go spend $500 a year and get Toon Boom Harmony and animate in the mainstream software. But what I'm saying is, for me, animation has always been my major form of storytelling in my heart. Comics are something I loved. Like I said, they had me. The first one, even before I even read like a superhero book, I read those like classic illustrated, and I read like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I started reading all these comics that were more, comics of novels and things, Frankenstein and all those things. I loved them, and that's where I learned to read. That's where I fell in love with comics. My love of superheroes came from growing up watching the Super Friends, and Spider-Man cartoons. And then when I saw they were comic books, I started buying them and reading them. And I got to see my animated heroes on the page. And I'm like, wait, this is awesome, because I'm not watching reruns anymore. Every month I'm getting a story that's continuing. And I loved it. And I fell in love with it. And that's why I made them. But after everything that I feel has happened, and I'm not trying to blame everything, like the stuff I was saying, I'm not trying to use that as an excuse. I just feel, and I've talked to people who run shops and other creators, and they just don't feel like doing it these days. And I respect people like you guys who are like, hey, listen, I'm doing something. I'm going to throw it up on Kickstarter, or I'm just going to put it out myself and I'll sell it on Indie Planet or whatever. And you guys are just doing your thing. And then you're buying your copies and you're going out to shows and you're busting your butt. And so part of me will, misses, setting up at shows and doing that. Another part of me is like, I don't need the stress. My next show is in November, guys, by the way, where I'll actually be. It is in New Jersey at, what is it called? Pulp Adventure Con.
Oh, I didn't know about that show.
Yes.
Comments.
I will put it in the comments just to show. Where is it here? For those who don't know, I got to work and illustrate a couple of stories in Zorro's exploits, and the company, Bold Venture Press, that put out this book, puts on the show. So I will be there selling prints of some of my pulp illustrations that I do, because I'm a big fan of like classic heroes, Doc Savage, and all that stuff too, and like all those guys. So we're gonna wrap up. Before we go, any last words from either of you you'd like to add?
I would say check out my Kickstarter, which will be coming soon. And yeah, if you have something to say, the most interesting stories are by creators who have an opinion. I think the literature that sticks with us is not just because it's a good story, it's because the creator had an opinion, had original thoughts, and put it on the paper and was just willing to do it. So I think for all of us who are thinking about their comics, just do it. Just make it happen. And, you know, if you need inspiration, you know, subscribe to one of Rob's 20 or 30 channels on every known platform, including some that aren't yet even launched, because you'll get some inspiration.
Real quick, Red, how do the bad promoters make money? That's simple. They sell tables. Tables are very profitable when you're charging $250 and you have 100 tables.
True.
You can take home a profit and don't care when anything happened. Cosplayers pay to get inside. They don't care if they're buying your books or not. I create comics, stories that I want to read. So I don't care. There's no such thing as failure to me as long as I made the book. If people don't like it, I just print less copies because I don't have to replace it anymore. I just take it off the shelf. It doesn't mean I don't love every one of my creations. I love comic books. That's not something Here's the difference. I'm a comic book advocate. I have been years since I've been inspired by Buddy. He's the whole reason I consider myself even a comic book advocate, because he inspired so many. And I do it out of the love of comics. So you know that's true, because when I don't have a Kickstarter, I'm still a comic book advocate. There are people out there who call themselves comic book advocates when it's convenient. I do it when I have a slipped disc in my neck, and Buddy knows how much pain I was in. I still kept advocating. I did it when my son had just had surgery, and I balanced how to actually do it. That's how passionate and how much I love comics. They're not dying. They're changing. They're evolving. They're becoming something new and unique, and they're always going to be amazing. So anyone who wants to come on a journey with me, hop on. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you both. I'll have to have you both back on at some point. We'll have another part 2 to this, maybe, with some new
Wait to hear all the complaints you got about the things I said first before you said it. You're gonna get some emails.
Put it on the page, Rob.
Exactly.
Make them read the story and pay for the privilege.
That's right.
Right.
All right, guys. Let me drop you guys backstage. I'll talk to you guys in a second. All right. Thanks again for coming on. All right. So there you have it. That was a very fun show. I really enjoyed the conversation. Really looking forward to doing a part 2. Thanks for everyone who tuned in, who was part in the comments. I really appreciate you guys watching and hanging out with us. I'll be back next week. I have another great guest. Actually, I got some really cool guests coming up for the next couple of weeks. I'll make the announcement very soon. So please check out me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. It's all at Michael Gracia. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, please like and subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye, guys.